Okay, let's suppose that this is our first lesson and we have to write an argumentative essay. This is what this lesson is going to be about. The most important part of an argumentative essay is what we call a thesis statement. All right? What a thesis statement is, it is very important to know what it is, where you should write the thesis statement, and what are the strategies that we can write a thesis statement. Today we're going to be dealing with these important contents, right? The first one is the definition of a thesis statement. Then the second thing is to know in detail three different strategies that you can use. There are many, of course, but I selected just three because these are the most used strategies when we want to write an argumentative essay, right? And then we're going to see some examples as well for you to understand more clearly what a thesis statement is and how we can write a good thesis statement. And after that, we're going to do some exercises, all right? By the way, this material is available on Educa for you in case you don't want to take notes and you want to see that information in detail. You can go straight to Educa and download it, all right? So let's get started with the thesis statement. The definition for the thesis statement is this. A thesis statement is one sentence, all right, that should be in your introductory paragraph. In the first paragraph of the argumentative essay, which normally has 4 or 5 different paragraphs, the first paragraph is devoted to write our thesis statement, right? And this thesis statement concisely summarizes your main points, the claim, and you present also there your stance of the topic. Remember that an argumentative essay is always related to, I would say, a sensible topic, right? And you have to take a position. You have to decide which position you are going to be to be adopted, right, in order to write your thesis statement. For example, we usually present sensible topics like abortion, for example. Another one, experiments with animals, as I said the other day. Smoking, for example. Okay, those are sensitive or sensible topics, and we have to take a position. Some people might think that smoking is dangerous for health, while others might say that it is not, right? So what's your position about that? You have to have a clear idea what position you are going to adopt in order to write your thesis statement. If you don't have a clear position, you cannot write a good thesis statement, okay? And so this is the main point, to take a position regarding the topic that is given, okay? That topic that is given, the topic that is given is usually called prompt, right? Probably when I give the test, when I give you the test, you will read a prompt, and that prompt should be taken into account, and you should take a position regarding to the topic, right? Okay, the thing is that writing the thesis statement is not straightforward, as many people might think. It's not just to write a sentence and everything is clear. That might be clear for you, but it should be clear for the reader as well. We have to write with the reader in mind, right? This is the idea. You are not writing for yourself. You are not writing for an unknown reader. You are writing for a person probably that you know. In this case, you are going to write to your teacher, to me in this case, right? So you have to make, you have to go through a process that is like very complex, because you have to write think, rewrite the concept as well, until you have a good thesis statement. So what I propose that you write your thesis statement and ask your classmates to evaluate your thesis statement. You can exchange your thesis statement and ask your classmate to read and to provide some feedback in order to make some improvement to your thesis statement. Okay, because if you just write your thesis statement, probably, as I said before, is clear for you, but probably it's not clear for the reader, right? Have you got any questions before we move on regarding the thesis statement? No questions? Okay, I would say that the thesis statement is probably the most important element in the whole essay, because if the thesis statement is not clear or is not well developed, all the essay is going to be weak, and your mark is can be go down. So be careful with the thesis statement, right? Today we're going to see 3 ways to write a thesis statement, and I'm going to provide some examples as well, right? The easiest one is to turn the prompt or the topic into a question, right? So I think that this is the easiest way to write thesis statement, but at the same time is the weakest. So we're going to go from the weakest to the strongest, right? For example, in this case, what you should do is to read the prompt and then try to turn that prompt into a question, all right? Let's read what it says here. In order to write a clear answer, because then you have to answer the question, you need to understand the kind of question you are asking. Most types of questions fall into one of 5 categories. For example, it can be a fact, a definition, cause, value, or proposing a solution, right? So first of all, you read the prompt, then you turn the prompt into a question, and then you answer that question, right? And there you have to identify in which of these categories and the answer falls, right? Let's see an example in order to clarify your ideas. For example, here we have a question regarding divorce, right? And probably the prompt was divorce, and the student wrote 5 different questions. And the first question is, does divorce cause serious problems for the children? Remember that the question has to be related to one of these categories: a fact, a definition, cause, value, or proposal. In this case, the first one relates to fact, right? Do you understand what a fact is? Because sometimes we read concepts, but we have to have a clear idea what a fact is. Can you provide some ideas what a fact is?
I think a fact is something that you can prove with evidence, right?
Yes, I agree with you. A fact is something that you can prove with evidence. That's completely true, right? For example, if I say um, uh, Santiago is the capital of Chile, that would be a fact, right? Because everybody knows that it is true, and you can go and see whether Santiago is the capital of Chile or not. That is a fact, and nobody would say that is different, right? The second one, or the second question that the student wrote, or the writer in this case wrote, was, what is domestic violence? In this case, the reader is looking for a definition, right? So the rest of the essay will be about a definition. And the other one is, what are the causes of divorce? In this case, it obviously relates to cause, right? Because we have causes and effects. In this case, and the writer is interested in knowing not the effects, but the causes. How important is it for couples to avoid divorce? In this case, is the question is related to value. Can you tell me where you can find the value here in this question? How important is it for couples to avoid divorce? Where can you see the value? In which word?
How?
How? How? Why do you think that how is provide value to?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You may say how much, and that deals with quantity.
Yes.
You see, so you may give a certain value to whether it is important or not avoiding divorce.
Right. Very good. I agree with you. In this case, how is like an introduction to the value, right? In this case, I would say how important, right? Or as you say, for example, how many or how much. But how is the key word to write something in relation to value? Very good. Thank you very much for your answer. And finally, a proposal. What can you do to make your marriage divorce proof? Right? It means that you are going to propose something in order to improve a problem, right? So you have to bear in mind that we have four or five different questions, but we are not going to use all of them. We have to decide which of them we're going to use for our purpose, for our essay, right? Some people prefer to write about the cause. Probably another person will write about a proposal, and another one would write about the value, right? A definition probably is not very common, and in fact, sometimes it's not a good topic to write about because everybody knows what something is, right? But the most common are cause, value, and proposal. So you have to decide which one or which question you are going to write about. Not all of them, but just some of them, or just one of them, right? Have you got any questions? Is it clear?
Mister,
Yes.
um, why did you say that this is the weakest option to write a thesis statement?
And can you develop your idea a little bit?
It's like in the beginning you said that there were that we're going to review three ways to write a thesis statement.
Right,
This first option is the weakest
right.
used, but why is it?
All right. Why is you are asking if why is it the weakest, right?
And then the reason why?
The reason why, right? I'm
Yes.
going to tell you immediately. The reason why is that you don't propose like a second opinion because whenever we write an argumentative essay, we have to take into consideration both sides of the coin, not just one side, right? So, for example, in this case, if you speak about the causes of divorce, probably you're going to just mention your vision or how you perceive the causes of divorce, right? But of divorce, but in an argumentative essay, a strong argumentative essay should have the two sides of the coin, right? This is the difference. Questions? Just one second. I don't know whether is someone. All right, someone was waiting. All right, just one second to start from this kind of side. Okay, is it clear? Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Right. Now we're going to move on to the second strategy, which is a little bit stronger. And you will see immediately the difference with the first and the second. And the first one is good to start as a first approach, right? But it is much better if you use the second or the third. You will see why. Okay, and let's move on then. The second one is what we call the refute objections. Another way to craft a thesis statement is to state one side of the argument and then present a refuting statement. It means you are presenting both sides of the same topic, right? Remember that an argumentative writing is like a debate, right? When you discuss a topic, there are all at least two different sides, but there are in reality you will see that there are many positions regarding one topic, right? Some people might think that smoking is bad for health. Other people might think that smoking can be bad, but not as bad as some people claim. Other people might say that smoking is not bad for health, right? So there are different positions, but you have to decide which position you're going to take. But at the same time, you have to mention the other sides. In this case, we call this strategy refute objections. All right. Let's see. I'm going to read through in order to make the refute objection strategy clearer, right? Another way to craft a thesis statement is to state one side of the argument and present a refuting statement. Let's see the example. While some people think there is no way to divorce-proof your marriage, this would be one side. Studies have shown that there are fewer divorces when people carefully prepare for the commitment. Can you see that we have the two sides? The first one is there is no way to divorce-proof your marriage, and the other one says that there are fewer divorces when people carefully prepare for that commitment. Can you notice that in the second statement, there is like a kind of evidence. The person speak about studies. The writer provides evidence through studies. In this short paragraph, in the introductory paragraph, you don't have to write with which studies you are going to use, right? You just mention, but in the following paragraph, you develop your ideas and you present your evidence with some references that we're going to be dealing with next week, right? Can you notice the difference between the first strategy and the second one? The first one is just to read the prompt and to turn it into a question and then answer the question. And then you develop the first paragraph and the rest of the essay. In the second one, you present first a position and then you refute a position based on studies, right? Let's see this example. In this example, you state one side of the argument, which is there is no way to divorce-proof your marriage, and then you refute or you reject, I would say, the statement or the previous statement with this. There are fewer divorces when people carefully prepare for that commitment. What makes this statement stronger or more appealing is the reference to studies that will be back up your argument. The more evidence you present for your argumentative essay, the stronger the essay will be, all right? So it means that your argument will be stronger and probably you will attract more points, all right? And your mark will increase. If you don't present good evidence or weak evidence, you probably are not going to attract score, or probably your mark is not going to be a good mark, right? Have you got any questions regarding the second one? Is that clear or not?
Yes.
All right. Sometimes when we read the slide, we find that everything is clear, but the problem is when we start writing, right? So if you have questions, don't be ashamed, don't be shy, and just ask the question, right? I'm here to provide help, right? Whatever you think it's not clear, just ask immediately, right? Don't be afraid. All right. Then we're going to move to the third strategy that is called roadmap. The third strategy is stronger than the previous one and is the strongest of the three strategies, right? It's more complete, and you will see why. An additional way to make a strong thesis statement is to do a roadmap. It's like you are planning a journey, and before you start your journey, you plan the places where you are going to be visiting. All right, in the journey, the roadmap is like going through a journey, right? In which tells in a few words the 3 or more points you will cover. All right. Let's see this example. Why some people is similar to the previous one. Why some people think there is no way to divorce proof your marriage. That would be one position. Studies shown or have shown there are fewer divorces when people carefully prepare for that commitment, right? That would be your position. And then how? By taking time to get to know the other person before becoming engaged. That would be one of the places you are going to be visiting in your journey, right? Then by spending time with one another's family and friends. That would be another place, right? And the third place would be by by talking about hot button issues like finances, right? And by getting extensive premarital counseling. Could you see the difference between the second and the third?
Yes.
All right. The thing is that this is stronger because it not only present two positions, right? It also shows clearly how you're going to provide evidence. All right, you're going to provide evidence according to studies in relation to time to get to know other people, right? Spending time with another's family and friends, and talking about hot button issues, and by getting extensive premarital counseling. What does this mean? It means that before you write the thesis statement and the first paragraph, you should do something previously. What is that? You have to do what we call a pre-writing activity. All right. It means that you have to read the prompt, which I will provide in the test. Then you will have to search for some sources. In this case, you can use books or you can use research papers in order to provide strong evidence. If you don't provide strong evidence, then the essay would be considered weak, right? So you can find strong evidence in research papers and also in some books. But for me, at least, research papers are the strongest evidence, right? Provides the strongest evidence. Why? Because the person who writes the article, who wrote the article, is a scientist, is a researcher, and he himself, he or she herself, was there and observed what was going on, right? It's like first-hand information. The other one is second-hand information, right? Textbooks or books. This is an example of really strong thesis statement in which you state your claim, right? This means your stance on the claim, the main points that will back up your stance, that is your evidence. Although there is a little long-winded, right? It thoroughly outlines what the essay will discuss, right? Not only is this helpful for the reader, but will help also when you draft your essay, right? By keeping you focused on these specific points. What does this mean? It means that it is good for you, because if you use the roadmap strategy, you will see immediately that you were going to focus on three aspects, on three different aspects or five different aspects, and no more than that. And at the same time, when the reader reads your thesis statement, will make a prediction of what the rest of the essay will be about. So in this case, the third strategy is an invitation for the reader to continue reading, right? The other ones are good, but they don't invite the reader, they don't engage the reader to move on with the rest of the essay, right? And I don't know whether you have any questions before we move on to the next step, how to write or how to start an argumentative essay. I don't know whether it's too much information, but we're going to do some exercises later, right? A little bit late. Questions? No? Okay. Now let's imagine that we have decided what our position is, and we have done some research and found evidence. We have a lot of evidence, and we have to decide which evidence we're going to use to back up our argument. So we are ready to start writing our argumentative essay. But now we're going to focus just on the introductory paragraph. The introductory paragraph, which is the first paragraph, all right, should be based on your thesis statement, all right? Everything is around your thesis statement. That's why your thesis statement is the most important element in the essay. If the thesis statement is good, it means that your essay is good as well. It's clear, easy to write, and easy to follow, and follows like a coherent way to show your ideas, right? When you write your first paragraph, you have to provide something which is very important. Provide background information, right, that is needed to understand your argument, and also presenting pieces of evidence that back up your argument. But remember that we just mentioned the evidence, but we don't develop the evidence in detail. We're going to leave that evidence for the other paragraph, for the upcoming paragraph. Right? How do we start the first paragraph? With a hook sentence, right? We usually start with a fact or statistics, right? Or a quote, or a personal anecdote, or a thought-provoking question. For me, at least, I think that if you want to write an engaging topic sentence, because the hook is the topic sentence, you should use statistics. Statistics are very convincing. Everyone who reads statistics will probably want to find out more about what the topic sentence is about, all right? An anecdote is also good, but it's not as stronger as statistics, right? Thought-provoking question is good as well, but you have to make the decision. For me, at least, when I want to impress my readers, I usually start with statistics, right? All right, your first sentence should draw the reader in. You have to engage the reader, right? So you invite the reader to move on with the rest or to the rest of the paragraph, all right? In the same paragraph, that was, I mean, in the first paragraph as well, you have to provide some background and context. And what is this about? You have to provide previous information, what the situation is about, what are the events that lead you to your argument, because the argument does not come from nothing, it comes from something, all right? It comes from a context, probably something that you have experienced when you were a child or something, right? Or probably you read something and it comes from somewhere, right? Why should people care? This is very important as well. You have to consider that your position is important, all right? Because some people probably think the same way as you think, but there are other people who think differently, and I want to convince that those people probably are not wrong, but they should also consider a second position, right? Give enough background on the topic so that the reader can understand your argument. Nothing more and nothing less. So it means that the first paragraph follows like kind of organization. I start with a hook sentence, right? Then I provide some background, and then I state my hypothesis. So it means then that your thesis statement goes at the end of the first paragraph, all right? And that would be probably a good first paragraph, all right? This is the end of the presentation, but I would like to know what you think about. Is that completely clear, or have you got any questions? No questions? My advice is that you, thank you. My advice is that you start doing your research as soon as possible. Start writing as much as you can, because if you leave everything for the test, unfortunately, your essay would be not good, all right? So would be a little bit weak, because writing is like riding a bike. Probably if you know, you can read a lot about how to ride a bike. You know how to ride a bike in your mind. But when you start riding your bike, for the first time, probably you will fall, right? And that is all right. But the more you practice, probably the better you will ride your bike. The same thing happens with writing. The more you write, the better, probably, the better results you will get. So I strongly suggest that you start writing as much as possible. And you can upload your writing, the first paragraph at least, to Google Drive, so I can provide feedback. And also it's advisable that you share your thesis statement, your evidence with other students, so you can provide each other feedback, all right, in a more confident way. Sometimes students don't want to show the first draft to the teacher because they don't feel confident enough, but probably they are more willing to share the first paragraph with another student, right? Because it is more confident. All right. Have you got any questions? Because otherwise, we're going to move to an exercise that I prepare for you in relation to what we have been dealing with today. All right. Just one second. I'm going to use my notes here All right. Let's imagine that you are going to write something about in relation to your career or with your what you're studying. In this case, language teaching, English language teaching, right? Uh, and the prompt is like this: Spanish should not be used at all in the English teaching classroom as it hinders the acquisition of the target language, right? This is the prompt. I think that most of you have an idea or have a position regarding if English should be used, only English should be used in the classroom, or if Spanish can be also used in the classroom. I think that most of you should have an opinion about that. Probably in the practicum or when you go to schools to teach, probably you will see if Spanish should be or should not be used in the classroom, right? So the first strategy is to read the prompt, and then afterwards I need to take a position. But before I take a position, I will turn the prompt into a question. All right, and then I will answer the question. In order to go a little bit and quickly, I will write my own question, right? You can do it on your own as well during the free time, but I will do it just for the sake of the time. I wrote this question: does the use of Spanish, for example, hinder acquisition of English while teaching in the classroom? In the classroom. That would be the question that I will use, right? I will have to then answer the question, and the answer to that question would be the thesis statement, all right? In this case, I would say like this: several authors have stated that the use of a learner's mother tongue, I will use just this mother tongue, doesn't affect his or her acquisition of a foreign language.
Mr. Does that question is like a cause, or fact, or because it's not a value? Or
Yes, this is a very good question. What do you think? Is that a fact? A fact is, I wouldn't say that it's a fact, right? Because whenever we speak about argument, I think that facts are not under discussion, right? Because, for example, if I say Santiago is the capital of Chile, probably that is obvious. So probably we're not going to write about that particular topic. I think that in this case we're speaking about the second thing.
it's a cause.
Sorry,
a cause.
a cause, right? We are speaking about a cause because in this case it's cause and effect as well, right? But it's a cause. Several authors have stated that the use of learners' mother tongue doesn't affect his or her acquisition of a foreign language. This is the cause. Some people might think that it affects. Other people might think that it doesn't affect, right? And that would be then my thesis statement, right? And according to that thesis statement, I will develop the whole first paragraph. I will start with probably with a statistics or anecdote, a personal anecdote or something. then I will provide some feedback, and at the end of the first paragraph, I will then write my thesis statement, right? In this particular case, I'm not saying that I'm taking a position explicitly, but implicitly, I'm saying that I agree that Spanish should be used in the classroom. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes, because if you read the sentence or the thesis statement, I don't say anywhere that Spanish should be taught or should be used in the classroom. But the way I wrote the sentence, I said several authors, I will use that particular evidence state or have stated that the use of learners doesn't affect. It means that I'm supporting that idea, all right? But for me, it is a little bit weak, right? So probably I would not use that type of the first strategy, but it's a good way to start, okay? To start writing. You can start with this strategy because it's the easiest, and then you can write more elaborate thesis statement using the second or the third strategy. All right, I'm going to continue with the second strategy, but using the same prompt, right? Don't forget that the prompt is that Spanish should not be used at all in the blah, 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 right? And let's see what happens if I use a second strategy. For the sake of time, I will write my notes, the answer that I prepare, while some scholars mean some researchers, right? Other name is it's an alternative name for researchers. Agree that to write L1 for instead of mother tongue, L1 should be banned in the classroom. All right. So in this case, I'm acknowledging that there are some people who think that Spanish should not be used in the classroom because it hinders the second language acquisition, right? But I'm going to provide my own opinion based on evidence, and this evidence is our studies. Studies show that a combination of L1 and L2 enhances language acquisition. And you see that in this case, the thesis statement is stronger because I'm providing the two sides of the same coin. I admit that there are some people who agree that Spanish should not be used in the classroom, but at the same time, there are other people or other researchers who mentions that Spanish can be used, but not only Spanish, in mixture with L2 that would be then English in order to enhance its language acquisition. All right. Any questions? So the first one is a little bit weaker, but the second one is stronger, right? And I'm going to move on then to the third strategy and using the same prompt, right? Spanish, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote this. While, let me see, I'm going to copy this because it's the same thing, similar to strategy 2, but the thing here is that I will let the reader know that I'm going to focus in 3 different aspects as long as language acquisition. Let me see. Enhance the opportunity to acquire English. Enhances language acquisition as as long as teachers, right, sorry, teachers provide comprehensible input, use L1 as a last resource to clarify ideas, give instruction, clarify idea, or to give instructions, and to transfer aspects L1 to L2. All right. And I think this thesis statement would be stronger because I'm not just showing the two sides of the same coin, but at the same time, I mention how I will prove that the combination of L1 and L2 enhances language acquisition by using comprehensible input, using Spanish as the last resource to clarify ideas, and to transfer some aspects of the mother tongue to English language, right? In that way, the reader will know immediately that you're going to be speaking about these three main aspects, all right? It's different from here because here the reader doesn't know what the rest of the essay will be about. Probably there is a big focus, but here the focus is more narrowed. And I know immediately what the topics are going to be developed in the next paragraph. Questions? No questions? Okay. We have some minutes available to see how we can write the first paragraph. Remember that the first paragraph should start with a hook sentence, right? That is the topic sentence. We can use a statistic, quote, and whatever, right? If I want to use statistics, it means that I need to read some studies before I write the first paragraph, okay, and use the statistics. It's different if I use a personal anecdote or a thought-provoking question. Let's see, I wrote something like this. In Chile, 84% teachers of English public schools are not able to use L2 efficiently. And I would say surprisingly, that would be more interesting. Surprisingly, English in Chile, 94% of teachers of English of public schools are not able to use L2 proficiently. What do you think? Do you think, is this true or false? Is this something which can be considered true, that 94% of teachers of public schools are not able to use L2 proficiently? What do you think?
True.
True. Why do you think? Why do you think it's true?
No, I think it's actually no. It's too high for being public schools. I mean, nowadays the system is trying to improve language and strategies and so on. Therefore, we might have higher quality in the teachers level language.
All right.
Or maybe too much.
Do you think it's too much? Unfortunately, it's true, right? And yes, I took this from an article, right, that I read the other day, and it shows clearly that many teachers who work, for example, in public schools, you know that public schools are the most vulnerable schools in Chile. You don't have, for example, books, or sometimes you have some books, but they're not good quality, and the students don't want to learn English, and you know everything that probably you have witnessed during your practicum, all right? And the teachers, when the teachers end the university, the language is very good, but after sometimes if you don't use your English, probably your language is going to, or the quality of the language is going to decline, and after some time probably your English is, you will use English but not in a proper way. So unfortunately that is true, and at the same time it calls the reader's attention immediately, so it is a good hook. The reader probably might want to know why 90% of teachers of English of public schools are not able to use L1 proficiently. So this hook is an invitation for the reader to continue reading the rest of the essay, right? And then I take this, then I provide some background and context, all right? And after that, I write my thesis statement, right? For example, you can in the background, you might say that in public schools there are not enough resources to teach English proficiently, and the number of hours is scarce, and so probably they have just 2 hours or 3 hours in a week. That is not too much. So the students or the teachers probably don't use English as much as they would like to use it, but they use English once in a while. Probably that's the reason why they, and the quality of their language is not as good as the teacher who teaches in a private schools where he has to use the English language every day, right? All right, and then you introduce some evidence if you want, but it's not necessary, right? This handout is available for you on the Educa, and also the slides as well, right? And that would be our lesson, today's lesson. I hope you have learned something. I don't know. Some of you might be a little bit boring or bored. Sorry. Because when we just listen to the teacher, it might be a little bit boring. So it's, I wish next classes you can make more questions, right? All right, for the next lesson, next week, we're going to be speaking about opinions and facts, right? Yes, it is difficult for everybody to write a strong thesis statement. So, as I told you before, the more you practice, the better thesis statement you will produce, right? Yes, it is a bit clearer now. Yes, if you use these strategies, I think I would suggest using the first one to start, and then you can move on to the second one and to the third one, and share your thesis statement with the rest of the students. But if you want to share your thesis statement with me, do it, okay? Don't hesitate. Otherwise, if you wait until the test, unfortunately, some people have this natural ability to write at the first time. They write whatever they want in a good way. But for most of us, including me, it's very difficult to write a good argumentative essay at the very first time, right? So please start riding your bike. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for coming, and see you next week. I don't know about the roadmap. I didn't know. All right. So there is also a link in the handout where you can go and read more in detail, because that information is taken from the from our online information. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the week, and take care. You have a question. What the question is, Samuel?
Yes, yes, you were saying that that we should like um show you like our thesis statement, but are we supposed to uh, begin in writing something?
Yes, in order to, you have to, you can select a topic, right? What the topic that you want to write about, but you don't have to write a complete essay. Just write, and I would say, look for a topic, do some research, look for some evidence against and in favor, and then try to write your thesis statement, right? That would be the first part that you should do, right? You don't
Um,
have to write the whole. It is supposed, according to the previous weeks, that you should have been that you should have written the first paragraph first, the second paragraph. But at the moment, as we don't have enough time, I think it's a good idea that you start writing as soon as possible. Take your own decision how you can do it on your own, right? Because probably what is good for one person is not the same for another person. So you have to find your own best way, right? But the thing is that you should start writing as soon as possible and share your ideas with other students. And also, of course, you can count on me and submit whatever you write to me so I can provide feedback immediately, right? But the thing is that you need to, before you write your thesis statement, you need to take a position, search for evidence against and in favor of your own position in order to write an argument, right? An argument is a position that you take, but at the same time you have to acknowledge that there is another position as well, right? And thank you very much.
thank you.
Take care and see you next week.
Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
See you. Take care. Enjoy the week. Bye. Bye.